In this video, I take the inside outside to make a stylized portrait shoot. Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that's got everything for us photographers. And today you join me on location at the Gatwick Aviation Museum, as you probably see and hear in the background. Now, location shoots are great, but sometimes to stand out from the crowd, you need more than simply a great model and a great location. You need some styling, or at least a theme. And the theme is really simple. We're going to bring the indoors outdoors. So let's get a light set, let's get a model in, let's get shooting. So to help me out today, I have a great model. I've got Chloe, and she's sat in a red chair in the middle of a field. Already that's kind of getting stylized, but we're going to add to this as we go through. First thing I want to do is work out the exposure. Now I'm going to use a bit of flash, but also going to add some ambient in here as well. So let's start with the ambient exposure. I want to go for a nice shallower depth of field, so I'll go with an f2.8 aperture. And I've got ISO 200, the native ISO for my camera. I'm thinking about a 4,000th of a second shutter speed. Let's see how this looks. Okay, Chloe, I'm going to take one shot. And that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. It's a little bit underexposed, which is exactly what I want, because now I can add to the exposure with a bit of flash. I'm using high-speed sync flash. Check out the Adorama Learning Center for more information on that. And here's how it looks with the flash. So that's my basic shot, and already this is looking pretty good, but we can add to that. So with the basic exposure sorted, I can now add in some extra props. And the first one I'm going to add in, just a bit of a rug. So we've got a random rug that I think will tie in nicely with the rest of the props. Let's see how that looks. Here we go, Chloe. So now we've added an extra element. We've added a table with some books and some flowers, and of course a lamp. Not that it works out here, but that's not the point. It's all part of styling, remember. So let's see how this looks. So the last prop we're going to add in is just a teacup and saucer. And the reason we're going to do that is, well, it gives something for Chloe to interact with, to work with, but also it just looks good in the whole theme that we've set up here. So let's see how this looks. Excellent. So that's the basic idea set out. We've got a few other props we can play with as well, but what we're going to do now is take a few shots, and when we've done that, we'll take these pictures into Photoshop and do a little bit of editing. So let's get the pictures first. Chloe did a fantastic job modelling on a really windy day, but that wasn't the only weather problem we had. The sun was constantly going in and out. So I'd positioned Chloe so when the sun was out, it was on her back and added to the picture rather than being in her face, which would have caused problems with squinting and exposure issues. Well, that was a great fun shoot and we got some fantastic pictures at the end of it. But in an ideal world, maybe you do things differently. So perhaps I would put a light behind Chloe rather than relying on the sun. Perhaps I'd wait until the end of the day for that low, warm sunshine. But of course, it's not always an ideal world. So for this shot, I'm going to use one of the ones where the sun was backlighting Chloe. I'll add my own warmth in post-processing. Now I could do that in either Lightroom, Adobe Camera Raw, but I'm going to use Photoshop. Let's have a look. So here's the shot I want to edit, and let's begin by adding some warmth to the picture. Now I want to do this non-destructively as far as I can, so I'm going to choose Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and then across and down to Color Balance. I'll click OK, and here I can choose a warmer tone by changing the tone of the mid-tones. So I could do shadows and highlights, but it's mid-tones I'm interested in. I'll take the cyan red towards red, and then the yellow-blue I'm going to take towards yellow, and that should add a nice warmth to the shot. Now these are not exact numbers because it doesn't matter how many times you do this, you're going to find that you want to have a slightly different setting. It's going to vary from person to person, picture to picture, but I think that looks about right. I'll just close this down and you'll see on my layers there's these little sort of scales here, and this is an adjustment layer. So if at any point in the future I want to change this, I simply double click on the scales and it pops right back open exactly where it was before. So that's my warmer tone added. The next thing is I want this sort of sunshine look, as if the sun was just out of shot up here and beaming through. So to do that, I'm going to make a new layer. I'll go to the layer on the menu, just down to new and across to layer. Click OK, and there is a blank empty layer onto which I can add my sunburst. So that calls for a paintbrush. I'll get the brush tool and I'm going to make sure that my foreground colour is a nice sort of warm tone. Something like this looks absolutely perfect, a sort of yellowy orange. So I need a big paintbrush, and I do mean big. So I'm going to use the square brackets. The right one will make my brush nice and big, and I'm going to keep going, and yeah, that's going pretty, that'll do, that's enormous. So I'm just going to click once up here in the sky, and that's going to paint that orangey yellow colour into the sky. Now, when you look at that, I kind of know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that doesn't look like sun at all. It just looks like a big orange blob in the sky. Well, one of the advantages of doing things in layers is you can then adjust how the layers interact. So in this case, I can change the layer blending mode, which is currently set to normal, the default setting. I'm going to click on the word normal, drop it down, and find the word screen, and that should blend that in really nicely. Now, there are various blending modes. They all give a different look. So maybe you want to do something more like hard light, or maybe you want to do something more like overlay. They're all going to look slightly different. And of course, you can always soften the effect by changing the opacity, so you don't have to have it quite as strong as you see there. But I think it was pretty good, close to 100%. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm almost happy with this. There's one last thing I want to do, and that's just tweak the contrast. So I'm going to go back to layer, down to new adjustment layer, and I'm just going to use levels, click OK, and really I just want to make sure the blacks have a nice deep black to them. We can maybe just bring the highlights up just a little tiny bit, but other than that, it's just a very, very minor change just to tweak my contrast. And there you go, there's my final picture completed. Well, that was great fun to do, and bringing the indoors outdoors really made a different look to the pictures. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave me a comment below, and if you want to see more videos from myself and the other amazing presenters right here on Adorama TV, you know what you got to do? You got to click on the subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.